Hey guys, it's your buddy Choppadong with a express and late night version of chin music, if you will. Something just to point you in the right direction. Well, right direction in my opinion. But honestly, you guys have really come a long way as a group. So don't worry too much about the specifics and things. Baseball's a random game. It's a volatile game. What you're looking for is what you guys are starting to find. You just keep following the ideas and you roll the dice. And honestly, you're going to come out very competitive most of the time, whether or not we win or not. I mean, the thing that I would tell you is uh, long run is really, really long. And even if we go 3, 4 months in baseball, we don't really know much. If you remember back to the flipping a coin video that I did, where all season long you wound up $9 or something like that. It's very similar. It's the nature of DFS, and the smarter people get, the more educated they get, the smaller our edge becomes. And when those edges are really, really tiny, luck becomes a big factor as far as a little, long hot streaks, long cold streaks. When I played poker, I mean, as the games got tougher, my edge went away. I started off, just for poker people, I started off crushing games all the way up to the $100 and $200 no limit levels at, I mean, easily 15 to 20, big blinds per 100 hands, which in poker terms is absolutely killing it. But because my win rate was so large, my variance was very, very small because I had a very, very large edge over the competition. So I won far more often than I lost. I still ran into some bad luck, but I was able to make it up in other areas because I was so far ahead of my competition. As the game got smarter and as we educated our competition and as people started, the games got tougher and the fish, of course, recreational players dried up and went away and got onto something else and whatever else, and never came back, never redeposited because they kept getting cleaned out and they didn't want to learn and they didn't want to get better. That chewed up the bottom of the pond, and then from the top of the pond, the good guys were always getting better and the mediocre guys were getting better, and our edge was going away. And as our edge was going away, things became more and more volatile. And that's what we're starting to see. Baseball is already volatile enough that you can go a long, long time and not know if you're beating the game or not. So it really frustrates me to see people say, well, I should be winning money by now, or what. You don't know that, and you don't know that you're even a bad player. If you follow sound principles of picking the better pitchers in the better matchups and the better bats in the better matchups, you're going to be very competitive in cash games, in 50-50s and things, head-to-heads, whatever, where other people are maybe taking risk around you and failing. But as more and more people get on those same players and are able to identify those same players, you're all on the same player pool, and now it just becomes luck as to who has the better night because they're all in, A plus, A minus matchups, and you're splitting hairs to decide between, this guy or that guy. Now, that's where it also becomes important to capitalize on that luck and start going after higher upside contests. And that's where we start digging into 100-man leagues and we start digging into GPPs and things. But some GPs are so inherently unwinnable because they're so large. It's what happened to the main event in poker in the World Series. That thing started off a couple thousand people. It's fairly winnable, not often, but it's winnable. And that's why you see guys with 5, 6, 7 bracelets and whatever else. How many of those guys have added another 10 bracelets to their career? None. Why? The game has gotten so damn big with tens of thousands of entrants and satellites coming and the general skill level of the game coming up. Those guys' edge has eroded down to not much of anything. And therefore, they have to go long run, long run, long run, long run before they win. Yeah, you sat down and played them for $200,000. They might fleece you. But honestly, in a tournament style setting, they won't because they're not going to win it either. They might be better at getting, in the top 100 than you, but they're not going to win it any more often than you. It's the exact same scenario or analogy that I use when I talk about me putting and Jordan Spieth putting in a contest. You take Jordan Spieth, give him a 40-foot putt, and drop 100 balls. He's going to get them a lot closer, and he's going to make more of them than I am if you give me 100 balls to putt right there with him. However, if you cut it down to just say ball number 37, well, odds are I can beat him in a scenario like that because I got one shot, and on a smaller sample size, luck becomes a factor. On those larger sample size, it doesn't. So you got to run across a whole season, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to win the week, win the month, win the season. When we're talking about MLB and NFL and all of these things, we're not talking about winning tonight. We're trying to make fundamentally smart decisions tonight and hopefully come out ahead and do it again tomorrow and do it again the next day and do it again the next day. And hopefully at the end of the week, we're up money. Hopefully at the end of the month, we're up money. That's just a little sidebar to get your head right and get your expectations realistic. Because when we dive into this, I'll point out the good spots and I'll point out some good numbers to you, and they're competitive, but luck plays a factor. And when your competition is about as smart as you are, luck plays an even bigger factor. So get into this contests that maximize the luck, some upside type contests, and on your good nights, get leveraged up above, 3, 4, 5, 6 times your buy-in, and that's where you really start to boost your bankroll. So anyway, diving in to our pitchers on the Express slate. These are just the 8 and 8-15 games, 4 games. Keuchel looks like he's going to be a little bit chalky. He's got the highest grade. 80's not great, but he's got the highest grade. There's a whole bunch down in here in the 60s that I would be using. Carlos Martinez might be my favorite because when I'm looking at price, 88, 109, well, shit, that's a wash. I was hoping it was a bigger price difference than that. Eovaldi's not bad. So let's take a look down in here at these two and see those 3 guys and see Odorizzi's okay, I guess. I won't be using any of the other guys. So if I'm looking at Vegas odds, there's your big one right there, your minus 265. That means Houston's going to win the game, not necessarily Keuchel's going to get the win. But anyway, 170 is fairly strong. The others not so much. Odorizzi at a pick'em game is not really strong. We'd like to see big money lines on the pitchers that we like. So when I scroll back over here to look at K-score, I see, a 39 out of Keuchel. That's not good. 39, that's not good at all. Odorizzi's got a 45. It's okay. Martinez has a 45. I'm telling you, Martinez is low. Martinez is probably the highest strikeout upside pitcher on the slate tonight. I really kind of like him given that his last few starts have been okay. I don't mind some of the other pivots, but I don't think anyone here is going to be necessarily all that chalky because they're all just kind of I would pick on these bottom guys again. St. Louis, Houston, Kansas City would be the offenses I'm looking for. Wouldn't be afraid to run Minnesota because Minnesota's been pretty hot lately. Wouldn't even be afraid to gamble on Martinez blowing up and putting some Cincinnati in there. But I'm really going to try and focus down here. So when I kick over to the trends page and do the same thing that we always do, I'm going to sort out some of these guys a little bit. If I can get that one to kick on. And now we're just going to go, greater than on a smaller slate like this, say 350. And we're going to try and stay up above 400 if we can, but I don't want to completely eliminate those guys. We've got guys that are fairly, we'll check the starting lineups here in a little bit. So I'm looking St. Louis, St. Louis, St. Louis, Houston, Houston, Houston. Those guys are going to grade out great, but we want to see that they're also hot, which since I weeded out the bad ones, they probably are. I told you, let's start with the chalky ones, St. Louis, Houston, whatever. Carpenter, okay, 356. It's a little low. See how he's coming down off his 2-week numbers? He's cooling off. Well, let's check his hard contact really quick. 54%. He's still hitting the ball hard. Maybe hitting into the shift again a little bit. I haven't watched a lot of the games last week, being on vacation and whatnot. Colton Wong, Jose Martinez, Jed Jerko, Yaro Munoz is not getting a lot of playing time with Paul DeJong being back. I'm waiting for Paul DeJong to pop onto this board. Hits a couple of home runs. He'll probably be up there. So these would be the bats I'd be focused on. I might take an extra one here or there as a one-off. I love their prices. The world is going to love their prices. Altuve, Bregman, Gurriel, and Kemp. Great numbers here. I mean, Altuve's coming up off the 305. That's a good sign. The others are running pretty darn hot. These are great bats, potentially tonight, being that they're going up against Fires. Who else do we say? Minnesota, perhaps. See how that team grew? A lot more options there. That's because they're a hotter unit right now. So they're definitely in play. That would be the playables. I look at Kansas City just for kicks because I know they were in an okay spot against James Shields, but there's only a couple of guys that you should be looking at. Tampa Bay is another one. This would be going in the face of Odorizzi. Decent prices, decent WOBAs. These would be the guys you'd be focused on. So these are the guys that I would be writing down on a piece of paper, and I would be pulling to the front in the domination station when I go in here and start playing with the optimizer, because I want to key in on these. Let's say I wanted to stack St. Louis, Houston, some Tampa Bay, and maybe some Minnesota. If I had those 4 teams targeted, I would set them, well, we got to add up to 200%, so that's what, 50, 50, 50, 50, if I wanted an even balance. But let's say I wanted more St. Louis than anybody else. I might set St. Louis at 100% and then go 25, 25, 25, or 30, 30, 30, and then let 10% kind of kick into the other teams or something. When I'm on smaller slates like these, got to ask this question too, I tend to do 4-3-1 a lot more, only because the offensive choices are lower. So when the offensive choices are less and lower, there's only a few to pick from, then I have to stack inside those offenses. So that lends to that 4-3-1 type style. If you wanted to be a little bit flatter, because maybe you had a couple of other offenses that you did like, we said St. Louis, we said Houston, we said Minnesota, Tampa Bay, whatever, you could do 3-3-2, and run your stacks like that, a little bit more balanced. You start getting to 3-2-2-2, stuff like that. Now you're starting to get more towards cash game builds because you're starting to spread out, and you're really going to lose the boom or bust nature that when it hits really hard. And when you do that, you're ruining your chances of getting way up to the top of tournaments most nights. Not always. There are nights when one-offs do win, but most nights you're ruining your upside. So you would take those 3-2-2-2s types and you would send them more towards your cash games, and you would hope that the guy stacked against you and he fails. And if he took that kind of risk and he fails, because if he hits, you can't compete with him. If he fails, then you wipe the floor with him, because he's going to be traveling, way up and way down and way up and way down outside of your channel, which is hopefully in here somewhere kind of in the middle. And you're going to hope, really, you're setting the bar, and hopefully you're setting the bar high, the floor high, so that he has to come way up to get over you, and most of the time he's finishing way underneath you, and then maybe gets you a little bit way underneath you. Hopefully you could follow the tracer there and see what the visual that I'm trying to create, which is the channel that you're operating in cash games is narrower. Hopefully you set that floor as high as you can, but it's not going to have the ceiling that a stacked lineup's going to have ever. Stacked lineups can get above just about anything most nights. So that's what you're hoping when you stack a little bit in baseball, is that you've got the upside to hit those 10, 20, 100-man competitions in those GPPs, and on those nights that you hit the 100-man, you're going to crush the 50-50s and the 3-mans and the 5-mans and whatever else, because you've done so well. You're in the top 1% of lineups anyway, so you're going to pretty much rip apart any of those other contests. What you're hoping is that on those nights that you do miss with that stacking stuff, you still miss, and you're still kind of top half. Maybe your big stack didn't really connect, but it did okay. In which case you're hoping that that was enough to get you past the 50-50, and you do that with some solid pitching and whatever else. You don't need to worry about, with that style, you don't need to worry about ownership that much. Where's the chalk? How do I get off of it? You'll see that there are some spots that we noticed already that were, Keuchel's probably going to be popular. Martinez probably going to be popular. Eovaldi might be popular. And if you look at those guys, then generally speaking, if you ran those 3 guys in Domination Station around those stacks with St. Louis, Houston, and whatever else, then what you're going to end up doing is you're going to get on the chalk and off the chalk a little bit if you make 2, 3, 4 lineups, that type of stuff. And you'll have a couple that'll end up being a little bit wackier. And maybe those are the ones that do well tonight, but you're going to have some that are pretty chalky, and those are going to do okay in your 3-man, 5-man type stuff too. So it takes a blend. What you're doing is you're trying to treat this whole thing as a portfolio. Like when you're investing for your retirement, you're trying to take your 401k and not put all of your eggs in Microsoft stock, because you go all the way up and all the way down. That's great if Microsoft rages. Like if you bought Amazon 15 years ago, holy cow, you're a millionaire. And that's great if you had all your eggs in it, but the chances of bust are also great. And when the chances of bust are also great, when you're messing with something like your retirement, or when you're messing with something like your DFS budget, you want to kind of smooth it out and make it a little bit safer some nights. Now, that's what gets into that. We need to spread out a little bit, take on a couple more lineups. Now we've got a wider player pool we have to pick from. We're picking, these 3 Houston guys and these 4 St. Louis guys, and then in another lineup, these different 4 Houston guys and these, 2 St. Louis guys and these 3 Minnesota guys, or something like that. And what you're doing is you're mixing that player pool together, hoping that you get the right mix somewhere, and it does really, really well, but also hoping that you get enough of the general player pool hitting that it produces something really, really good in the combinations that you have. So you're thinking more along the lines of, I'm not investing in a particular stock. I'm picking very, very high quality stocks and throwing them into a mutual fund and just hoping the overall mutual fund does really, really well. Okay, so that's another way to kind of describe what you're thinking about when you're building these lineups. Since we kind of looked at that a little bit, let's jump into the later games and see what we don't come up with there. What are we at the 15-minute mark? Hopefully we don't make this a half hour for you guys. Edwin Jackson, ooh, why is he so high? Madison Bumgarner, Bueller, there's Pena down there. It's interesting that he's in Sensatale is not starting, so double check that one. Pena, oof, I'm surprised he's so low. I liked him on because I liked his K-score. When I look at Pena here at the 21.8 and the 20, that's a 460 something. He was higher than that this morning. But again, when I'm looking at the odds, come over here to the Vegas odds, and I see the 160 and the 160. These are going to be a couple of guys that I'm keying on. So that's Mad Bum and Walker Bueller. I don't like Pena to plus 140, but if his K-score is way up there, then I don't mind him as much because the strikeouts will erase some of the runs that he gives up. When we're looking at Madison Bumgarner, we've got, what, a 440, 450, and that's a little low for him in K-score. Walker Bueller's at a 450, 460. So again, there's nothing super phenomenal on this particular slate either. But what we're looking at generally is the names that you recognize from earlier. And when we're looking at prices, we're looking at big money for Madison Bumgarner already, and then we're down here with Bueller at 78 and Pena at 8. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be doing this, especially to get into that Colorado game. We have to determine whether or not we want to get into that Colorado game. And the way we would do that is we go back into the trends tool because we're going to look, they're the bottom two matchups for a reason. And then the Dodgers and maybe the Angels and then some Cubs. These would be the offenses I'd be looking at. Does that mean that San Francisco can't score 12 runs tonight? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that most of the times we run this scenario, these are the offenses that are going to produce. So if I click off of Tampa Bay here, bring all my teams back, and then click on these later games, I've still got the same WOBA set at 375 or whatever, 350, whatever the heck I said it was. And we're going to be looking at a little bit wider range of teams here. What, 4 games? It looks like a deeper list tonight of bats. So that's a pretty good sign. When I look at Colorado, there's some Seattle up tops, and did I see a couple? I did see a couple Chicago guys. I didn't see any LA Angels. I only see one Dodger, a couple of Oakland guys. Interesting. Against Edwin Jackson. All right, why is it against Mad Bum? Is that who's playing? When I look at the after-hour slate, that's where I'm going to find San Francisco and Oakland. Okay, my bad. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily stack against Mad Bum, but if you wanted to, it wouldn't be a terrible idea because it looks like these Oakland guys are grading out fairly high. Anyway, what did we say? We said Colorado, of course. We've got a bunch of guys hitting over 350. We want to make sure they're in the starting lineups with small plate appearances. But Arenado, Blackman, Story, Desmond, Cargo, these are your names. Wolters if he starts. These are definitely the names you want to be looking at. And they're all in play. And with Bergman on the mound, I mean, he wasn't a very highly rated pitcher tonight anyway. When I look at Seattle, only a couple of guys. And that's really interesting because cutting this all the way down to 350, everybody else is on it. Now, does that mean that Nelson Cruz might not have a good night? No, the guy's got double dong power every time he takes the field. But it just means he's not going good right now. He's going to run up against a soft pitcher. Maybe these guys come out of their shell tonight and score 6 or 8 runs. That's okay. I just don't know exactly who. I don't see anybody who's really balls on fire right now, so that makes me nervous and makes me. I can certainly find a fade in that game and bank on the fact they stay cold. But would it surprise me that they get hot and score 10 runs tonight? No, wouldn't surprise me at all. It just means I guessed wrong. I would look at the Dodgers, and I'm not going to see much there. Utley, yuck, puke. How cold are the Dodgers right now? They're in a good spot, though. LA, Pujols, Trout. Pujols, because he hit those 2 bombs the other day. Okay, not so bad. Chicago. These would be the guys you're looking at. Don't know that I could get into any Giants. Oakland. Oakland looks like they're running fairly hot. Maybe you do take a shot on Mad Bum. That's one where you check the BVP because you know what kind of pitcher Mad Bum can be. Check the BVP and take the guys that have good BVP against them. If it's 3 of them, stack them. And then San Diego does have a little bit to offer. But so, again, these are the playables. This is how you go through and you go looking for these guys. And you get your plan, your game plan, based on looking at your pitchers. Who would you take and who would you attack? And then you go into the trends tab, cut down the WOBA numbers to the high numbers, the hot bats, and then start sifting through the offenses and see who the hot teams are. Maybe if it lines up to where I'm targeting, Colorado tonight because they're in Coors and I've got a lot of names to choose from, that's an offense I want to stack. And I may run it with an Arenado, Blackman, Story, a Blackman, Desmond, Cargo, Walters, Arenado. That would be 3 different lineups right there. It's still all focused on Colorado, and if that's what the slate is giving me, that's what I'm going to take. And I don't mind if I have 6 lineups tonight and 5 of them have Rockies. It doesn't mean that the Rockies are, that I'm overexposed to the Rockies when I have different mixes of the Rockies in my lineup. I mean, I am if they only score 2 runs, but those are the breaks. I mean, it looks like they're in a great spot. If they're in a great spot, they should come through. If they come through and score, 10 runs tonight, then hey, I've got 3 lineups with them going, 3, 4, or 5 maybe of 6 lineups going with different mixes, and maybe I catch the right combo that maybe, Story, Cargo, and Walters was the way to go. And because I mixed them up right, I got it. So again, you're writing these names down, you're targeting these offenses, you're targeting these pitchers, and then you're going to go mix them up and see what the lineup optimizer gives you, because that's really and truly what's going to take your own bias out of it. You're going to produce the numbers. You're going to say, okay, 12 points projected out of Nolan Arenado. I really like him tonight because he's hot. He's hit, okay, he's not. Let's say Trevor Story. He's hot tonight. 4,300. He's not really affordable, but he's somewhat affordable, and he's hitting at a WOBA of over 500. So I'd like to see the guy in most of my lineups. So instead of the 12 points we have him projected for, I'm gonna bump him to 14.5. Or 13.5, or whatever it takes to kind of get him separated. If you want to see him in everything, bump him to 15. If you want to see him in just a little bit more than he's in, then you bump him from 12 to say 13.25 or whatever. You got to play with it. You got to feel it out. But what you have to understand is what you're telling the optimizer to go do. And once you've got that player pool in your head that you've identified and that you've written down, and you start pulling it through the optimizer and running, optimize and then optimize again and optimize again and optimize again. You start pulling those numbers a little higher or a little lower based on how many times the guy's showing up and what you feel like you'd like to see him in when it comes to your lineups. You get a general feel. I'd like to see him in a lot. I'd like to see him in a few. I'd like to, whatever. And you can control that optimizer and you can adjust it in the way that you see yourself. You see your player pool mixing the way you want it to. That's why you control those stacks. With the Colorado stacks, maybe I want them in, 100% of my lineups, or maybe I want them in only 75% of my lineups. But either way, I'm going to then go make, say, 15 lineups and pull the best 5 that I like. And if Colorado happens to be in the 5 lineups that I like, then I just happen to be running a lot of Colorado tonight. That doesn't happen every night. It does happen some nights. And on small slates, it's okay. You don't have to spread all the way out. Now, on a 15-game slate, you might not want to do that unless Colorado's in such a good spot that you couldn't find anybody else to really pair up with them. And so you took Colorado with some Cincinnati, or Colorado with some St. Louis, or Colorado with some LA, or whatever. That's okay too, but that's a much more boom or bust proposition. It's boom or bust on this slate, on these smaller slates too, but everybody else is forced to choose something as well. So you're all a little bit more boom or bust together, and therefore you, by just kind of playing the chalk, you're playing a little bit safer, and you're putting yourself in a little bit better position to win. Hopefully this kind of gets your mind set right. Hopefully it gives me a lot of time to get a lot of information in my head out to you guys in 20-25 minutes. I know it's not reading a 5-minute article or something like that, but I also get to show you where my mind goes or show you where I'm headed. So hopefully you like this type of content, you like and subscribe to the channel. And this was a VIP video today. However, because it's Freebie Friday, I'm going to go ahead and drop it to the public. So go down into the comments section and become a VIP today if you like this deeper content, these deeper dives that show you a little bit more about the tools, because this is the kind of stuff you get access to when you are a VIP inside DFS Army. And not to mention, use code CHOP, save yourself some money, 10% off. CHOP is the code that you want to use. And I hope to see you on the inside. I'd love to talk to you more, love to coach you a little bit, and we'll see. We'll go back and forth. I learned just as much from the VIPs as they learn from me. I've grown a ton by just being in a position to speak or being a vocal guy, an opinionated guy. I get talked down off of stuff. I get shown things where I'm wrong too, and that's fine. We all grow together. That's the beauty of it. I want you to win. Hopefully, you want me to win. As long as we're not in the same contests, and then we'll go mix it up again tomorrow night, and we'll do it all over again. So take care, guys, and hope to see you on the inside of DFSArmy.com. Peace out.